Welcome to the You Don't Know What You Don't Know podcast by Innovative Business Advisors. Successful business owners who have started, grown, and led businesses share their journey and direction for the benefit of those traveling the same path.
Very excited to have as our guest, Derlene Hirtz. Derlene's led a very interesting life to date, leading to where she is now as the owner of multiple businesses, as well as being an author, co-author, and speaker. Derlene owns a franchise business here in St. Louis known as Team Referral Network, and also owns another business by the name of You Empowered Services. You Empowered Services is a business focused on helping individuals reach their potential and step into their excellence through coaching and training. Team Referral Network is a business focused on building local teams of business owners united to network and grow by building their business together through a team effort of sales and referral. As I mentioned earlier, Derlene's the author of Journey of Intention, chronicling her personal journey, which has led Derlene to shift her life's focus to one of helping others that are seeking their own personal empowerment. Welcome, Derlene. I have really been looking forward to this.
Thank you, Steve. I have as well.
Outstanding. Well, listen, we didn't know each other, obviously, outside of E3 before this. So it was fascinating as I was reading a little bit about you and doing a little bit of research on you in preparation for this. You and I have been kind of on parallel tracks in our lives, but going the opposite direction, if you will.
Yes,
right?
exactly. That I noticed that as well when I was reading, up on you. And it's just kind of amazing how, and then you end up in this conversation here. Mm-hmm. The way that life works, right?
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is me too. It is me too. So you started when you got married young. I did as well. You were 19. I was 20. I had not finished college at that point in time. I was still in school when I got married. How about you?
So I remember the day I asked my mom.
Okay.
Actually, I told her, "Hey, Mom, I want to go to college," and she said, "We don't have money for such things." Oh. And that moment, it was like, okay, then I guess I'll get married, And it seemed like those were the only two options that I had, which is probably why I'm a huge advocate for young girls and making decisions for their future. And so I started college. I was probably about 21, and I would say that I'm a 20-year, 4-year college student because that's about how long it took me. And then it was just there was so much that played into that, but ultimately being successful at completing it and getting my degree, I felt like I should have been a speaker that day because I knew something about resilience.
I bet.
Yeah, so that's how that all played out. And in the meantime, I was a school teacher working towards a degree, which was the agreement that I had with the school. And then I became a religious education director off of that. And then that's when my life took the turn towards business.
Okay, I want to go back a little bit. So when you were a school teacher, were you teaching in public schools or in Catholic schools? So you were teaching in the Catholic school system. You were raised Catholic, right? You were raised in the Catholic Church?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. And a Catholic school teacher, what grade?
I was a PE teacher.
Oh, cool. You were the fun teacher.
Yes. And I used to think, oh my gosh, they're paying me for this.
Yeah, so cool.
Exactly. Except for maybe not so much in junior high, but I did think that with the little kids.
All right, and then you went in from being a teacher into administration. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, the kids that were in public school went to a program called PSR, and I ran that program.
Okay, awesome. Mm-hmm. And then you had something changed, and you decided to go into business for yourself. So I'm interested to learn what kind of motivated you to that decision, and do you remember clearly making that decision? I'm going to go into business for myself.
Yes. So I remember thinking that it was possible, first of all. There has been nobody in my family that I've been able to trace back that's been an entrepreneur or a business owner. They've always been JOBers.
So you broke the glass ceiling.
I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I didn't even realize it was possible because I thought my life was laid out for me. It was clearly defined. And At the time, I would tell you they were unfortunate circumstances, but today I would tell you they were just the biggest blessings of my life that allowed me to see that I had way more to my potential, way more to my value than what I ever thought was possible. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, I can do what I do, but in a way that I feel called to do it, right? I've always ministered to people, children, their parents, you know. And when I realized that I could actually do what I do on my own terms, I thought, now I need to figure out how to make that happen. And I had gotten involved. So the trigger was, you know, we as women go on these journeys. I don't know about you guys, but we go on these journeys of self-doubt, lack of confidence, wishful thinking, fill in the blank, right?
I think those are human journeys.
Yes, that's very true. And so I was on that journey. And then the big ball that dropped was that my son went to Afghanistan for the first time.
Okay.
And that elicited a fear in me that I didn't know how to deal with. I just didn't have any tools. I had no idea.
This is your oldest, your firstborn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And when he said that, I just went into this deep dive of the fear, right? The ultimate fear then at that time was that he would die, right? And I also had this fear. So I was raised in the military during Vietnam. And I can clearly remember some of the things that went on in Vietnam. That was a lot of conversation around our table. My dad was in the military. And I can remember the guys getting off of the airplane and the news commentator saying, look at them. They look like they lost their soul.
How brutal it was.
Yes. And when she said, look at them, they look like they've lost their soul, that ended up being the biggest fear for my son, would be that he would have that look, right? And so that was the underlying fear that I just didn't know what to do with it. And so I would show up happy with a smile on my face on every place in my life until I get in my car to go home. My husband worked out of town. Thought I was faking it till I could somehow make it, and that just wasn't possible. And so the day that I just decided that, I really decided that I was kind of done with life, and in the next thought, what does that mean exactly? That's when I picked up the phone, made a phone call, got involved with NLP, neuro-linguistics programming, and have only looked back for the lessons learned that are amazing lessons and build on that.
How'd you get exposed to NLP? Because you had that as your fallback, right? So you must have been exposed to it. I was thinking someplace before that.
No,
It hadn't been.
No, I started working with a coach, and I had such quick shifts. Like one day she said, what are your dreams? And I'm like, what do you mean? I have no dreams. My life is like defined for me. So why dream? Till 2 months later, I'm saying, okay, now this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. And she's like, whoa. And I'm like, how did that happen so fast in my life? And so that's when she explained about how NLP is designed to be quick fixes so that you can then move forward.
Got it.
That's really how I got involved.
So your coach introduced it to you.
Yes.
Okay. So you made the decision to quit working in education and start your own business. And you knew exactly what you wanted to do.
I thought I knew.
You had a plan. At least,
I did have a plan. My first plan was to be a life coach.
Okay.
That's what I was going to do, is just help people who had been in my circumstances do that. And then once I got involved in it, the whole business aspect of helping business owners just became completely intriguing to me. Because I always thought that, when you have a business, you just put open for business and people just knock on your door and they just come running. Yeah. That wasn't the case. So then what I found out is, business owners, they have these struggles and these troubles and all these things that hold them back from the success of their business. And that's the part that really intrigues me the most, is being able to help them work through that.
So when you started your business, did you focus, was your original intention to focus on business owners, or did you quickly discover that business owners would be a good, prospect source for you?
Yeah, I don't think it was my focus. I think my focus was on those people that were sitting across my desk when I was director,
Uh-huh.
telling me their woes and
Yeah.
asking me for advice and stuff
Parents.
like that. Parents, a lot of parents. Yes. And then going out networking and meeting business people from beginners just like myself to well-seasoned. I just found that the whole business world fascinating. And networking to me, chamber of commerces, all of that is like, wow, this is so cool. I love this stuff. And you learn. I always say I learn much more in sitting around a table listening to somebody do their 10-minute talk than I ever did in college. Practical information that I can put to use, right? I just find it completely fascinating.
Yeah, I agree. I think the skills that I underappreciated at the time in college were research, learning how to write, and learning how to do math, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Those are the things you carry with you every day. So fascinating. You start your business, you're off to the races. You have this dream in your head that you're going to help other people that have been on this path. Were you had a coach at that point in time, right?
Yes. And we were having a conversation one day.
Okay.
And I said to her, well, I think I want to bring in NLP to St. Louis. The Midwesterners deserve this. We always get everything last. And so she said, well, what does that look like for you? And I said, I don't know. I said, it just sounds like a good idea right now. So we talked about it for a while. And I was on a missionary trip in Belize. And so we had made an agreement when I came back. That was one of the things I was going to really reflect on while I was gone. And when I came back, kind of had an idea of what that was going to look like. So I invited her in to come and train NLP with me here in St. Louis. And that's what we do.
Wow. So that was really the kind of the genesis of your business plan, right? Was that I'm going to bring this new way of thinking, if you will, into St. Louis, right?
Yes.
That your coach had taught you, and then form a business of providing that service to other folks that were in a similar position to you.
I was going to say, I brought her business model out here.
Okay.
So I flew out to California, 68 days plus travel to take all of the training out there. And
your coach was in California and you were living in Missouri, and you invested 68 days to go learn this.
Yes. And each time I would come home, I would be like, you just see life through different lenses. The more you really focus on self and growth and understanding how the mind works. That's what NLP is, the study of success at an unconscious level, which is totally what fascinates me. And to know that I really and truly had control over my life and my thoughts after all those years that I made excuses. There's a lot of responsibility in that, right?
No doubt.
And so I said to her, I go, why don't we just bring your business model here? And then it was with the agreement that I would invite her in as long as I wanted, as long as I felt like I needed.
Kind of as an advisor?
Co-trainer.
Okay.
A co-trainer.
Okay.
And we did that. We've done that for about 3 years. And this just very recently, within the last 6 months, I decided that I want her here. I don't need her here. We've become very, very good friends. And so it's like, I really like this. I think this is a lot of fun. And so that makes sense to me in my heart, right? Maybe not necessarily in a business sense. So then I decided, and I just am putting this into works right now, is I started ministering to businesses with teams to go in and do what I do, helping them with mindset, which then affects sales, which then affects productivity and motivation and all of that. It's called the 5 Pillars of Unstoppable Success.
Oh, I like it. That's your latest product. I like it. Great. Did you do any research when you were thinking about bringing this model to Missouri? Did you do any research? Were there other firms that were doing this?
Scientific research or Derlene research?
what was the Derlene research?
People saying, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool! Oh my gosh, you should bring that to St. Louis! Oh my gosh, that was their Derlene research. Oh my gosh, I think I will. And the more people I meet out in business, and they were willing. I'm very much about the relationship.
Yeah.
People tend to open up fairly easy to me.
Yeah.
And so the more they would open up about, some of their struggles and troubles that they experience, I thought, gosh, this would be such a great thing. And I knew that there were a few NLP certified people around. There was not an NLP training program that I could find.
Interesting.
So I did do that.
So you were unique.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Definitely.
And do you find that still makes you guys and your company very unique in the marketplace?
Yes. I think that once I can adequately use words that help people understand what we do, which for me has been, I get so excited and all of the things that I fail to really explain the benefits of NLP. I can tell you personal development wise, because that was my experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then how it shows up in our business is where I really got to learn and grow. And as the more that I do that, the more people want to come on board. So they really think that they're coming to grow their business. And by the end of day one of our program, they're going, I've got this going on in my life, and I have this going on in life, and that's not allowing me to make a proper decision in how my business should go, or if I should continue to grow, or if I need to redirect, or whatever that looks like. So we've seen that all across the board like that.
So you have multiple training programs. If I've looked at your website, and it looks like you've got kind of some short courses, if you will, that are 1 day.
Yeah, the Success Boot Camp. Yeah.
Success Boot Camp. Okay.
Yeah, the Success Boot Camp.
And does that lead to a longer training session then?
Yes, one of the options from that is what's called NLP practitioner.
Okay.
And then what can lead to after that is, I call them our master programs. There's a program called Timeline Therapy, and then Master Practitioner, and then Master Timeline Therapy.
Okay.
And then it all culminates in what's called Trainers Training out in California. We do that all out there with all of our companies together doing that. That's a lot of fun.
Is this one-on-one or group coaching?
A group.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all training with, the sweet spot is 20 people. We have no desire to have 50, 60 people in a room, because we are all about real transformation, not just acquiring knowledge, very surface level. I think the greatest moment comes when you're just standing there as a trainer and you just see this person, like their whole physiology changes because they've had this incredible moment in their life where they're like, oh, well, doesn't that make sense? And it usually involves some tears and sometimes body shaking and stuff like that. I just think that's like the greatest thing in the world, is to be able to see somebody take that step to their next possibility in their life.
Yeah, you get to witness breakthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how cool.
It's truly beautiful.
So how many years that's the You Empowered Services business. How many years have you been doing that now?
So I've been doing You Empowered for about 5.5 years.
Okay.
And then I bought Team 6 months after I started You Empowered Services.
Okay. So,
and I laughed because I really had no clue what I was doing. It just sounded like a good idea.
what was the idea behind that at the time?
The idea behind it was meet people at Team Referral Network, build that, share what I do with You Empowered Services, and have them slide into that program. And all of that, it's still a great idea. The growing part for me was, those are two really big businesses that require a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of know-how. So I brought on a couple of coaches to really walk me through that business side of it and to learn to trust myself. Sometimes when you hear best practices, that doesn't mean that it's the best practice for you. That means it worked for that segment of people, right? And so that is one of the things that I have really enjoyed just recently, is really going, well, I'm so glad that works for you. I just don't see that working for me.
You're getting some discernment in that area.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then the question is, so what's your plan after that? Give me a minute.
That's what business ownership really, I think we see the most of. People have to make the pivot, right? Your best laid plan doesn't always come to pass. And that's what I think distinguishes people like you that have been very successful from those that haven't been very successful. You have to be flexible enough to make the pivot.
Right. And that's actually exactly what happened between life coaching and success coaching, was that it comes down to who can pay for my services, right?
Right.
And, no judgment, but the mom sitting across the table who's at home with her kids all day, which is a great idea, great way to raise your kids. They aren't going to have the financial income and stability to hire me to do what it is that I do. And so that was another reason why it made sense to really move into the business sector.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it just completely fascinates me how we're like normal people living our passion, and I even say beyond passion is mission, right? So I've accepted as my mission that this is me until I retire.
Awesome. When you first started your business, I wanted to talk about you've never been in business before. You didn't have a family background that you could rely on of family members that could coach you along. What were some of the challenges you faced early on?
Well, going out of the gate without a good plan.
Did you write a business plan at all?
I did.
You did?
I did because I was supposed to.
Wow.
But that doesn't really know that I really meant what I was putting down. It just made sense to put it down.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, best practices. And then I did have my coach who was directing me, and she was asking me the right questions and allowing me to think about the potential and, just the whole idea behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the big challenges, was that I had the plan. I really didn't think it was the plan that, in retrospect, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't think it was the plan I think it was too grandiose. And so because when I got that door open to dream,
mm-hmm.
I did dream,
mm-hmm.
and I still do. However, then to baby step it
mm-hmm.
to reach that, right? That's where I really get to do a lot of work, is start with the dream, make it a goal, write it down, right? Make it a goal. And then now what? Like I think you should start a 5-year plan, and then go, okay, then at 3 years, then at 1 year, then at 90 days, and then what do I need to do today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't necessarily know that then.
Okay.
So I think that, and then I think one of the things that really held me back was I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my intuition, because there was all this knowledge out there from people that I perceived to be these incredible business people,
mm-hmm.
just because they had a business.
Mm-hmm.
That whole, when I grew up, I can still remember my parents talking about business owners as if they were these gods, they must know what they're doing and all this stuff. And
mm-hmm.
I'm like, I called my parents and talked to my mom and said, Mom, guess what? They're just like us. Just a whole different way of going about doing their life, and living their dream. So that's, it's our dream, right? It's not a dream that we're helping somebody else achieve.
Right.
And I think that's the greatest gift of all.
Yeah. So you kind of stepped into the unknown a little bit, and you learned you had to adjust things a little bit, but you started with a plan. That's good, right? And it was challenging learning where your plan differed from what the reality of the business market might have been at the time, right?
Definitely. And the whole discipline behind being a business owner.
Yeah.
As well as shifting from, when I worked in the world, right? I knew exactly what was expected of me. I knew exactly when I needed to be where.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so clearly defined that it was kind of easy, right? To just step into that. With the discipline of being a business owner, creating that plan and then going after it, as well as knowing that as a business owner, sometimes it's okay to take a couple hours with the grandgirls, or, when the kids come in from out of town, and being able to take an afternoon off with them. That was the grace that I really got to learn. And I'm just now really starting to embrace that.
Freedom to be able to set your own time when you're going to do what, right?
Yes.
Rather than look at somebody else's clock.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of the key freedoms, no doubt about it. What's one of the early successes that you're most proud of in your business? What was an early success that kind of fueled you?
The earliest, an early success was the first success boot camp that I did, I had 30 people in it.
Wow.
And yes,
That's great.
it was amazing. It was really, really great. And I got out there and I hustled, and I really met so many people, and it just happened, I guess. I know it was a lot of work. And when I think about sitting, we were at Dave & Buster's in their room.
Okay.
And we had to find a new facility because there were so many people in it.
30. Yeah. That's a big group.
Yeah, it was really amazing. That was probably my first big success. And the success of it all was to understand that there were that many people who were really that curious and just seeing what could be for them, and then just in terms of business, having 30 people on your first time out was amazing.
Yeah, that was awesome. So the boot camp, is that a one-day? That's a one-day event?
Yes, it is. We usually run it for about 5-6 hours.
Wow.
And usually by the time people leave, they have a very, very clear idea of who's responsible for their success, who's standing in whose way,
Okay.
understanding their mindset at an unconscious level. One of the first things that we start the boot camp out with is the first key. We do 9 keys of success, and the first key is, what is the 4 most dangerous words in the English language? And it boils down to, I already know that.
Mm-hmm.
Because whenever that comes out of our mouth, our unconscious mind goes, oh, well then I don't need to listen any further because I already know that. And the world that we miss out on with that kind of mindset is we're only missing out for ourselves. We had an 18-year-old kid in class one time, and that we started, that's within the first hour of the class.
Okay.
We hear that, and I can still see him. He was sitting next to his dad. He looked over and he goes, I owe mom an apology.
That was a breakthrough moment.
And just immediately he did. He already had gotten his money's worth just in that, in that first hour. And I could still see him doing that. And his mom was like, she was in the back with me. He was sitting in the stand. She's like, what do you think he's saying up there? So it was great.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you started Empowered Services first. Then you got into Team Network, 2 completely different businesses. I would imagine 2 completely different sets of challenges.
Yes. With the networking is the biggest challenge is I can't do it on my own. It is impossible to run 5 chapters here in the area without any help. So getting the right directors in place that kind of buy into my dream, and then making sure I'm compensating them in a way that is beneficial to them, and yet maintaining a bit of profit for myself. That's probably been the biggest challenge. And then once people get in the team, they're just so excited about it and they love it. I always say, you pay for the plan that works, right? It's got 20 years behind it. Team
Right.
celebrating 20 years this year.
Nice.
And yeah, it's kind of fun. And so just being able to intimate that and get the directors on board and all of those sorts of things, that's probably been the biggest challenge.
Yeah, completely different than your other business, huh?
I feel like in You Empowered, it is truly about me. It is like, how much I get out there, how much I hustle, all that kind of stuff. And then with Team, it's really depending on other people. And that might have just been a little breakthrough for me. Saying that out loud.
Well, good. What, as you think about the team side, what are the challenge of finding a team? What I was hearing you say is finding the right people to do that is a challenge, right? That was the way you went about building Team different than the way you went about building your other business?
Yes. Because when I would go out networking, it's like, what do you talk about? Because you don't want to be
either this or that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And then it sounds like, well, you have too many, you're all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way that I received me doing it. So they must have received it that. So that kind of became a challenge of how that's going to work. And that's why the directors are helpful, because they're really out recruiting and meeting the people that might want to put a team together. So yes, that's kind of the gist of what Team does. And then once they were category exclusive, and so it's going on meeting a realtor and a mortgage person and an insurance person.
Yeah.
And who's the other person? Life insurance, financial services.
Yeah.
And once we get those 4 in place, then we can kind of build around and we call them the fabulous 4.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really an amazing concept. And it has been, again, the coolest thing to me. People who are all in it together. That's one of the reasons that I love team is literally we look around the table and say, we are each other's sales teams. Now, how are you going to teach me how to show up for you when I hear somebody say, hey, you know anybody who does mortgages, or do you know anybody who needs to sell their house, or whatever that is. So you teach me how to be your salesperson.
Yeah, and in this market, I didn't know it until I moved into St. Louis as well. But the BNI network is kind of a big networking group here in this market with, I don't even know how many chapters, but a lot of
They have
chapters.
a lot of chapters.
Yeah.
And that's our competition in the terms of competition.
Right.
We have been said to be BNI light because a lot of our like rubrics, rules, laws, I really hate those words, rules and laws, are different, maybe a little bit softer.
Okay.
And that's why they call us BNI light. However, what I do know is that category exclusive referral networking like that is a great way to start your business because you've got your posse behind you.
It works.
It does work.
Yeah, I think that's why there's so many of them.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And there's, we're fortunate enough to live in a land where there's gracious plenty. So there's plenty for everybody. Yeah.
Yes, which is another realization about business, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The money's out there. We just get to figure out how to find the people who we get to attract that want our services.
Mm-hmm. I got to ask you this. This is not on the script per se, right? It's not one of the normal questions I ask, but you may know, and many people that know me know that I'm a strong Christian, right? And I devote a lot of my time to studying the Bible. I guess the older I get, the more important it becomes to me.
That's fair.
It's kind of a joke, if you will. But you had a very strong, Christian background. You worked in Christian education, right? And now you're in a little bit of a secular world. Has that helped you in any way? Is there a blending of that in your life that you feel like has either helped you or maybe held you back?
When I first went into business, people say, don't be talking about God.
Right.
And that was such a huge internal conflict for me because I'm a woman of God. And how can I not talk about that which I believe has given me life and has given me all the fruits, right? How does that work? And interestingly enough, through NLP, I would say that my spirituality has grown immensely to the point that I am very clear on who God is and how God plays the role in my life to give me anything that I ask, maybe not the way that I want to receive it, give it nonetheless, right? And I'm taking what I've learned in NLP and I put that into my spirituality, which is probably my biggest strength of all, is leading with spirit. And that's also sometimes our biggest strength, is often our biggest weakness. Because in business, when you lead with your spirit and your heart all the time, sometimes you need to have a little head in there. Mm-hmm. And that's gotten me in trouble a couple of times. And I'm okay with that because I know that who I am as a woman of God is far more important than when I might have been expected to compromise some integrity or something like that. That will not work for me. Yeah. And I was doing a speaking engagement last Saturday, and the lady walked up to me and she said, I can't tell you how long it's been since I heard somebody talk about God in their talk. And I really appreciate that. And that just reaffirmed that if they aren't my people, they aren't my people. And I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. I didn't understand that at first, but I absolutely want to work with people who have a very deep spirituality about them. Because I tend to dive deep, which is another thing that could possibly get me in trouble sometimes, because I'm just like ready to get in there and know everything about the soul, right? And people are like, oh, slow down. But yeah, I think that once you really embrace, it's another affirmation of affirming who we are as people of God, and people of humanity.
Yeah, I think it's, what I've heard you say is it's authentically you, and it is where we connect, I think, at the deepest level, right? If there's a spiritual connection, that's an amazing level of depth that you don't get any other way. And that only comes by truly caring about people.
Right.
And truly wanting to, breathe into their life and help where you can.
Definitely.
Yeah.
As well as being open to who it is that the people that cross your path are. I just don't believe in coincidences. So I know that there's some big divine plan that this conversation takes place today, right?
So I have had a coach in my life for many, many years, and he's got some key things he says. One of which is we are all spiritual beings having a human experience, right? And he shared with me originally a book called God Winks, which is all about divine coincidence, which I believe in very deeply. And that's what I'm hearing you talk about as well, the same kind of thing.
Oh, yes.
Those are very special occurrences.
Yes. Just the things, since I alluded to Derek, going into Afghanistan, that fear.
Mm-hmm.
A very long story, very quickly, is that he sent me a picture one day and said, Mom, show this to Officer Ford, who was our dare officer at the school I worked at.
Okay.
When I showed it to him, he's like, well, that's my best friend, Jim. And so over in Afghanistan, my son meets this man named Jim Presson, and they have this conversation. Derek's from St. Peter's. He's from St. Peter's. Brings a picture. They send it. 8 years later, I'm at a local pizza restaurant, Peromi's, right here in St. Peter's.
Sure.
I was with a group of girls, and this guy comes walking in with his wife, and he had on the dirt Army color, like only Army guys wear that, right? So I knew right away he was Army. And I said to myself, oh, I have to go say hi to him before I leave. Well, when I went to leave, I thought, I'm too tired, I'm going home. And I literally put my hand on the door and I said, no, I'm gonna go say hi to him. And so I walked over and I said, hey, Army, right? He goes, yeah. And I said, my son's in the Army, and the conversation started from there. At some point he said to me, well, he goes, I have to be honest. I didn't go into the Army until after I retired from the police department in St. Peter's, to which my face must have just gone completely white, right? And he looked at me and he said, he literally goes, oh my God, you're his mother, aren't you? And by that time I'm bawling and just shaking my head, yes. So a divinely manicured moment.
Yeah.
And I also call that the power of a second, because I had 1 second to turn around and go to him or out that door.
Absolutely.
And I would have missed probably one of the greatest moments.
Yeah. Really
Just
cool.
unbelievable. Still elicits emotion. Honestly.
Yeah. That's those are, being sensitive to those things, I think, are some of the real joys that we get in life.
Oh,
yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. So your son, and I'm going to brag on him a little bit in your behalf. Your son not only served in Afghanistan, but your son is a Green Beret. He's the best of the best.
He is. Yeah, he's visited over there 3 times.
Amazing.
And it's been a growth for all of us. The first time he went, I think he was just married. The second time he had 1 child. The third time he had, I guess the third time he still had only the 1. And then he's just been out of the country and recently back, and missed his daughter's first birthday. So the sacrifice that the men make and their families, that's always what I talk about is my daughter-in-law is just the best. She is just the greatest human. She's raising these great kids. And I remind my son, she is your backbone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he is just, he calls, he goes, I'm off doing what I love. And she's at home, holding everything down and together. So it's a great sacrifice.
That's a cool deal. So honored to have your son serve for us.
It
makes a big difference for all of us, as we're seeing around the world these days. But hey, I want to get into your book. So you are also a published author of your own book. You've co-authored a couple of others, and you told me as we were getting ready to get started that you're in the process of writing another. So So share with us a little bit about your book journey as well. What's that been all about? How's that helping you? Tell us where that comes from.
So my first book, Journey of Intention, Life Made to Order, was really written for that person that I was going to be seeing. So for my future clients in a way, right? I really kind of wrote it as a calling card. And it is my journey of, I'm going to call it towards wholeness. I'm not going to say to wholeness because I think that's on the day I die, right? So as I had these aha moments, I pinned them. And so the book is, I feel like it's a very positive book. And it's every chapter has a challenge at the end of it about, the person reading it. And I wrote that with the full intention of just one day, one person calling me and saying, I get it. If you can do it, I can too. And one time a lady from Ohio emailed me and said, hey, I saw myself in your book, like all the way through. Wow. And I know I can do it. It's written in a conversation style. That's the way I write, totally. And I think that's part of what allowed her to see that.
So it was part of your design for your business, right? It's been instrumental in your business, I'm hearing you say. And it definitely achieved the objective that you had established for it. You've been able to check that box, right?
Yes, for sure.
Speak a little bit more about how important has that been for your business as your calling card. We have a series of books, as you know, and we use them in much the same way. It's our $5 business card.
Right, exactly. That's exactly right. It gets you in the door, right? To say that I'm a published author makes people go, huh? Yeah. How specifically, or what's it about, or just kind of like what we're talking about. And it's another form of curiosity that can be solved on a numerous amount of ways. And writing it was a form of healing. It was another aha moment, right? And interestingly enough, the chapter on forgiveness took the longest because every time I thought I was there, there was something either to forgive or some self-forgiveness, that I need to experience. And so it just is, I believe that, when it's written toward your target audience, it makes it easier for them to identify with you and want to be your client. And that's been very helpful in my coaching practice. The Fearless and Fabulous, the one that I recently was there as an anthology, I mentioned to the publisher, it's Davis Creative here in St. Louis. Okay. I mentioned to Kathy, I said, man, I go,
Kathy Davis.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Connects for me. Yeah.
She's just a great soul. Yeah. And I said, you should, on one of your books, you should just write an anthology about women who really have just become powerful in who they are. Mm-hmm. And she goes, well, I've been looking for a book for the next year for an anthology. I really like that idea. Mm-hmm. So we kind of talked about it. And the next thing I know, we're seeing information about how that can come to be. And when I wrote in that book, it was during COVID. And I just saw her Wednesday night. I was at dinner with her and I said, we really need to get all those women together under the same roof and do like we normally do. We got to meet each other on Zoom, and that was really cool. I kept in contact with a couple of them. I would love to be in the same energy with them physically, though. I think that'd be a lot of fun. It's really about overcoming.
Yeah, cool, very cool. It's fascinating. I read a lot as well, and I've been thinking a long time about a book that I've talked to many about that would be The Woman Behind the Man, because if you read, I'm a big biography reader, and you read about Henry Ford, I think, is one of the best autobiographies that's out there. One of the things you take away from reading about Henry Ford is that nothing in his life would have been possible without his wife. And when you step back and look at that, you say, he was the face of Ford Motor Company, but frankly, she was the backbone, as you so eloquently said earlier, right?
Yeah, I think that about Eleanor Roosevelt too.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if you look back in history, you can go back through, and I think that's true over and over again. And many times those stories, I think, are not well documented and could benefit from that.
I agree with you. It'd be a great book.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting read, wouldn't it?
Oh, fascinating. Yeah. Because it's so true. It's like I would call them the silent success behind every man, right?
Yeah, all the difference in the world, the difference between success potentially or failure.
I think early on, that was who I definitely was for Steve, right? He's always worked out of town. We raised our kids with him working out of town, all this stuff. And then the really cool thing is that when I shifted into now he's done that, learning how to run a business, helping people run their businesses, becoming an owner of a business, all those things. And then when I decided that I was going to start this, there's a lot more understanding on his part than there was on mine. Because he'll say, yeah, I get it. He goes, go do your thing, and he's just a lot more gracious. He's really kind of the man behind the woman right now.
Oh, there you go. I love it. Well, that's part of this journey. We don't walk it alone, right? So yeah,
yes,
that's really cool. Yeah, and Steve, your husband, is a partner and owner in the business as well. So while it didn't run in your family traditionally, you guys are setting a new tradition out there for your family moving forward.
That's kind of my dream for my grandkids.
Yeah.
They will be hearing a lot of stories and metaphors around those sorts of things.
Yeah, and I think it's the age we're living in. I think it's getting easier and easier. There's a new entrepreneurship renaissance that's coming out of this pandemic that we're just hopefully exiting for good.
Yes.
Right. And that's really cool. So awesome. So as in your business ownership situation today, you talked about some of your early challenges, as you're kind of getting into maturity in your business now that both are successful, right? Most businesses don't make it to the 5-year mark, and you passed that with your businesses, right?
Yes.
So you're in an elite field by itself right now. What do you see as some of the successes and challenges today that were different than when you were first starting?
Interestingly enough, I became so successful with NLP when I started it that I went from 0 to 100 really quickly. And so when I did that, I missed some steps along the way.
Okay.
That's and I really think that it's in the marketing. I was out there hustling, networking 4 times a day, all the things, right?
Yeah.
And I know that there's been things that I've lost along the way. Well, now I'm going back and I'm finding out the little baby steps that have to be taken.
Okay.
So that I see that as a huge success, that I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
And I've hired the right people. I've brought on another coach that is helping me with that.
Excellent.
And that's actually, it's a lot of fun what I'm learning, because you don't know what you don't know until you know it, right?
That's right.
And that's really kind of one of our things about NLP. It's one of our levels of learning. And so the successes that I'm seeing now is really a confidence of showing up, coming to a podcast and really being so aware of who I am so that I can then attract the people to me that allows my business to continue to grow. I really think that it was a lot of spraying and praying in the beginning, and I got really fortunate. And I worked really hard. I don't discount that at all. Now it's a little more succinct. I know my target audience. I know what I can do for them. And I'm willing to share that with them, right? And so that's been good. I think that the challenge is to always stay at cause. For whatever happens in your business, take responsibility for it. Don't blame COVID. Don't blame whatever. Fill in the blank.
Right.
We're full of
always
excuses.
something.
Yes.
Right.
And when we can stand and say, I made this decision and it shows up in my business this way, and I will not make that decision again. And I think that's a huge report. Business and life. Take responsibility, and be the kind of person who says, man, surprise, I'm not perfect. And learn and grow from there.
Yeah, I've yet to see a perfect business.
Yes. And if they say that, run. And that's really what I thought, sometimes when I'm talking to people and they're like, oh, I have no problems in my life whatsoever. I am like this perfect person. I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, the number one person we lie to is ourselves. Dude, you are totally holding up a mirror.
Let's go talk to your spouse now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, you're relatively early. We talk about one of the things we talk about is as you're building your business, right? and you're 5 years in. How long do you anticipate running your business at this point in time? Do you have an exit plan that you're thinking about?
Well, this was the greatest question that you could ask me at this point.
Okay.
Because I didn't start this until I was 52.
Okay.
And I read in your information, I should probably at 50 start thinking about my exit plan. I'm just getting ready to go. And so my ultimate, like in the big scheme of things, that I would have enough energy and health-wise and all of that to run this until the twins could take it over, right? That would be totally cool.
Nice.
But they're only 3.5 years old.
Listen, you got plenty of time. Yeah.
I'm looking at, is there an intermediate step there? Or I love what I do. You know, if I can sustain this, then why not, right?
Right.
And so the great dream would be that one of the kids wanted to take it over. That would be totally cool.
Yeah.
If they don't, it would be somebody who is as passionate about number one, NLP, and number two, about helping each other grow using the tools of NLP. And that would just like be a great dream. Handing it off, definitely. I don't want it just to cease to exist, you know, because I'm not here. And so it had 10 years minimum, I would say, at this for sure, and 10 years more, not total.
Right.
And then up to 20 years.
Yeah. Well, the odds are in your favor, right? So I always say every one of us as business owners are going to exit at some point, either voluntarily or involuntarily.
Excellent point.
We are all going to exit. That's for sure. 100% of the time. And 2/3 of the time, business owners exit by either handing it to a family member or someone that's known to them. And I say hand it. Typically, you know, there's a whole transition process that folks can work through. So, as I said, the odds are in your favor. So if that's your dream, as you well know, you know, we are at will to be able to live our dreams, right? And we just got to make them actionable, right? So that the dream with a deadline becomes a goal, and that enables us to realize what we want. So yeah, the odds are in your favor in that regard. It's a good plan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, you know, when I first got into this, on those days where I was so exhausted, I would say, oh my gosh, I'm so old. And then reality is, because I believe in the divine plan, that it was right on time, regardless of how hard I might have got that.
Right.
It just was not my time before that.
Right.
And to start it at 52 and know that that I could put things in place to where it's an easy transition is definitely the goal.
But so I want to introduce something else I learned about you. You are also a long-range biker. Not only Harley, I mean like the pedal kind, right? Is that true?
Yes. I will tell you, up until about 2.5 years ago, one of my great learnings is that when you go into business, and you work so long and so hard, the one thing that I did not put in place that I am just now getting back in place, as a matter of fact, I signed the contract last week, is my health and wellness. I would say to myself, well, exercise has to wait because I've got this to do, right? Reality is my success belongs on that bike. When I'm on that bike, I can think, I can plan, I can dream, I can do all the things, right? And I rode the Katy Trail in 2 days with a friend of mine about 4 years ago.
How neat.
Yeah. And
that's a long ride.
It was 241 miles.
Yeah, that's
I know exactly.
In 2 days.
2 days.
241 miles on a bike in 2 days. Yeah. On a dirt trail.
On a dirt trail. It was on the Katy Trail, yeah.
Wow.
And we were 1 mile away from the end. We drove through St. Charles. We started in Clinton. Okay. We drove through St. Charles, and the guy I was with goes, come on, we're St. Charles. We're like 230 miles in or whatever. He goes, oh no. So we were going to Watkins, and we're 1 mile from Watkins, and I get a flat tire.
Oh.
And we were racing the sun going down, and he was far better at changing a tire than I was. And so he's definitely changing the tire, and I was telling him how much I appreciated him. He's like, oh no, just don't talk right now. We have a mile left. So yeah, I I got into biking when I turned, how was I, 49, 50? I rode my bike as a kid.
Wow.
And it was just all part of this confidence and transitioning into doing what I wanted to do. And biking just happened to be one of them.
Wow.
So
Really cool. Well, Derlene, it's been an honor to talk with you.
same here.
Our pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Wish you all the best in your business. And I know you're going to do very, very well and change the world. So delight to have you. Thanks for giving us the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time and allowing me to share.
All right. All the best.
Thank you for listening to the You Don't Know What You Don't Know podcast. We invite you to visit www.youdon'tknowwhatyoudon'tknow.com and sign up to receive updates on upcoming episodes. You can also let us know if you'd like to be a guest or recommend a business owner to be interviewed. Find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, where you can like, follow, share, and join our efforts. Thanks for listening. We hope you join us again.